I also wanted to talk about Tibet and Xinjiang. I mean, these are regions that are extremely controversial here in the West. There's just so much misinformation about it. Obviously, these two regions are they have a voice in the two sessions. So, could you just talk a little bit about that, but also get into maybe some of the updated information about those regions? Because I think anything that we say is like propaganda from like 20 years ago. Like that's generally what the West is parroting and repeating at the moment.
So anyone who still believe this Xinjiang genocide narrative, I was like, you need to go read something. You need to have your brain checked. Sorry to say that because I recently I made this video. I think you saw it on my Instagram, on my TikTok, how these two French journalists came to China, want to find this forced labor from Xinjiang. But the whole video, I debunked it. The whole video was based on lies, even though they didn't find any Uyghur person in this factory. They still concluded that this factory was using forced labor from Xinjiang. And how did they came to the conclusion? And that's so absurd because they thought the recruitment video of this factory, the lady in the recruitment video was saying we hire people from Xinjiang and North Korea. And to us Chinese who understand Chinese, like, what are you talking about? Because the lady in the recruitment video speaks Shandong dialect with strong accent. So that made overtime payment bonus like 满勤奖. But the lady said it with a Shandong accent, 满勤奖. And another term is the 超天数奖. Like if you work for more days, we'll give compensation for the more days. 超天数奖, like 超天数奖 with accent. So these two French journalists with the poor Chinese skills, they thought, oh, that sounds like Xinjiang and North Korea. And that's how they came to the conclusion. Oh, that's Xinjiang, North Korea, which in fact the lady said overtime pay, overtime bonus.
I mean, the deep irony of this too is that in your video you showed them double checking with Adrian Zenz. We can trace the Xinjiang genocide claims to Adrian Zenz. He's part of the Victims of Communist Memorial Foundation, a Washington, D.C. based think tank, which this is one of those very typical think tanks that are U.S. propaganda, anti-communist type of thing. It's the type of thing like NED or USAID type of funded thing. And they actually double checked with him, but he doesn't speak Mandarin either. Like,
Yeah.
so why would they double check with someone who isn't fluent in Mandarin? It's completely farcical. But can you also talk about what the effect is for Uyghurs in that region in terms of employment? Because now it's
Mm.
basically like anyone who is Uyghur that is working is being claimed as forced labor.
That's what this Western propaganda is trying to do. And they have been doing that, not just in China, across the world, saying one country or one leader or some people are doing horrible things. And in the name of protecting, say, the vulnerable group, they are trying to force these people out of work. Say, like what they're trying to do, this is called atrocity propaganda, I think. Atrocity claim, accuse you of doing atrocity. But in fact, what they are trying to do is really destroy the people. They say they care about Uyghurs. Oh, you cannot hire Uyghur people because we believe you are abusing Uyghurs. Yeah, all the Uyghurs are forced labor. So many factories, many brands were afraid of such accusation, facing the protest, and so they have no choice but to not hire any Uyghurs or ethnic minorities. When no company hire a group of people, what are they gonna do? They're unemployed. You put these people into a horrible financial condition. So what are they gonna do? I think one thing is in many regions they try to push these people into this situation for recruitment for terror groups that happen in many countries in Central Asia. When you are forcing people out of work, you make their life miserable. They have no other means to make a living. Then these people can only be hired by, say, people from terror groups with horrible plans to do whatever evil things because they have to make a living. So this kind of anti-China or the Xinjiang narrative, what they were trying to do is get Uyghur people from Xinjiang out of work. Xinjiang is a very fertile land. They have many agricultural products like cotton, like tomatoes. So when those products were no longer being consumed, then the farmers, the local people have no incomes. And what are they going to do? They're going to create instabilities. That's what this atrocity propaganda was trying to do, try to create instabilities within a region. They did that in many countries, in the Middle East and in Africa, in Latin America. We saw the same thing happen again and again and again, trying to create instabilities within a region. But they failed miserably in Xinjiang. They failed miserably in China. They want to create instabilities in China, but that just doesn't work. Luckily, China's government has incredible plans to make sure the fruits of development can be shared by everyone. And even though some Western brands, because of the Western media's Xinjiang genocide narrative, they cut cooperation with the products from Xinjiang, and some people were put out of work. But China's central government came out with plans to support all these local people, local businesses, to make sure they won't go bankrupt, to make sure they will be employed. So I can give you some example how ethnic minorities, whether they are from Xinjiang, whether they are from Xinjiang, Tibet, or other regions, have always been supported by the government, starting from education. Because in China, we have this 9 years of compulsory education. Whether you're from village or cities, you have to send your kids to schools to have 9 years of compulsory education. But in Tibet, now we call them Xinjiang Autonomous Region, and Xinjiang, we got Autonomous Region. The kids in those two regions enjoy 15 years of compulsory education. All free, by the way. It's not forcing you to pay the money to schools. It's free education, 15 years. Because regions, provinces in the west of China are less developed compared to the provinces in the coastal regions in southeast. Now, China tried to reduce the wealth gap between regions. So for the past decades, prioritize, allocate resources to the West to make sure people from that region can play on the same level field. So to make sure the kids in those regions can have access better education, kids in Tibet, Xinjiang, 15 years of free education, and also the schools will provide nutritious meals. And those ethnic minority kids can also have extra scores for college entrance exam. And how many scores you can get depends on the population of your ethnic group. If you come from an ethnic group that just with maybe just a few thousand people, such a few population, then you can get maybe 30 scores or even more. Just to prioritize, you have the opportunity to go to top universities in cities like Beijing and Shanghai and Guangzhou. So, I mean, education is the most important tool for someone that you want to change your fate. So it starts with the education. Make sure everyone has the opportunity. And work is the same. Like in Xinjiang and Xizang, for companies, state-owned companies or governments, there are regulations that you have to hire a certain percentage of ethnic minorities to make sure everyone has the work opportunities. So all this forced labor narrative is just so lame that I mean, we don't need forced labor. To their eyes, any working Uyghur or any working Chinese is a forced labor. We just do our work. That's how we earn money. And luckily, everyone across the country, including the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region and the Xizang Autonomous Region, were lifted out of poverty by 2020. And many of them, kids, got a group community in Beijing because many of them are studying in Beijing. Oh, that just reminds me of another system. We also have this system just to make sure that some of the best students from Xinjiang and Xizang can definitely go to top universities in Beijing and Shanghai. So these kids have been studying in Beijing and Shanghai since high school, and they will go to one of the best universities in Beijing and Shanghai to give them more opportunities to study. So back to the video, I debunked the two French reporters. If there really is a forced labor with forcing Uyghur people to be forced labor, if there is a Xinjiang genocide, why would they need to make a video based on lies? Why would they need to make a video documentary based on lies? If all the narrative is so true, you could easily find anything, right? You can easily find a picture of a genocide or force, like why the two French reporter went through the factory and couldn't even find a single Uyghur face. And why do you need to go to a German expert to confirm what the Chinese person is saying? The German expert doesn't speak any Chinese. The German has never come to China, I think. Or at least he has never been to Xinjiang, but somehow he has been regarded as the Xinjiang expert by all these Western think tanks and Western media. Why? How? What qualified him? Because he wrote several research sponsored by ASPI or some think tanks, and then the think tanks were also sponsored by Washington D.C. And this so-called German expert, all his research are ridiculous. They just grabbed some documents from Chinese government and just twisted the things that were written in the government. It may sound true to Western audience, but for us, we're like, well, no, that's not what they're talking about. So they're he's good at twisting facts, twisting government work reports, and someone who has zero credibility to talk about China. Somehow they're the ones they go to confirm the Chinese. I was like, ask me, I speak Chinese, ask me, I can tell you. Like, you just suck at Chinese, you mistranslate something.
Yeah, that was crazy. When you did that debunk, I was like, this is insane because anyone could debunk that. Like, I mean, obviously you're amazing and that's why you debunked it, but they could have easily debunked themselves. Like, they just had to Google
No, I
search,
mean,
Google
you have
Translate
no
even.
idea what a laughing stock they became in China because, like you mentioned, anyone can debunk that. So all the Chinese people, we watched the videos, like, huh? So all the Chinese people, you don't need to have amazing investigation skills. As long as you understand Chinese, luckily they didn't mute the original voice.
Right.
So anyone who watched the video, any people in China who speaks good Chinese, understand how did you mistranslate that? I think they just try to grab anything that can fit their predetermined narrative.
Yeah, I mean, the irony too is that the girl was talking about quite robust labor laws, like overtime pay and bonuses. And I mean, it's just insane how they twisted that. But speaking of twisting things, you have a really, really good point there about Adrian Zenz. He took some white papers from China and then took it out of context, took it out of the system that China uses, and concocted an entire smear against the region.